The lights over Indianapolis burn low as the truth finally surfaces. For weeks, fans were told Caitlin Clark was nursing a minor groin strain. A simple setback, they said, just day-to-day. But behind closed doors, whispers turn into screams, and the truth is far darker than anyone imagined. Stephanie White, the Indiana Fever's head coach, is at the center of a controversy that could shatter her career. Because this wasn't an injury at all. It was a cover-up, a deliberate deception. And the receipts? They're piling up fast. It started quietly like all scandals do. A brief press conference. A few vague quotes about tightness and precautionary rest. But fans sensed something was off. Every interview sounded rehearsed. Every smile too forced. Then doctors began speaking out. Real sports physicians who actually treat elite athletes. They weren't buying it. One even said, there's no such thing as a day-to-day groin strain. In that single statement, the entire story cracked open. If the injury timeline didn't make sense, what else wasn't true? The answer, nearly everything. From that moment on, the internet erupted. Clips of Stephanie White's interviews began circulating, side by side, revealing contradictions too blatant to ignore. One week, she said Caitlin was recovering well. The next, she said she wasn't clear for 5-on-5 yet. Fans started counting. 5 contradictions in just 2 months. The story was changing faster than Clark's stat lines. But this wasn't just sloppy communication. This was something deeper. A coach trying to manipulate a narrative, control the optics, and hide a truth that could destroy her credibility forever. And the craziest part? Caitlin Clark herself stayed silent. No comments, no interviews, no pushback. Just silence. Until now. Because new information has surfaced, showing that Clark's supposed injury had already healed weeks earlier. Doctors confirmed she'd been cleared to return to full practice. Yet somehow, Stephanie White kept her on the sidelines. The reason? Control. The team wanted to rework its system without Clark dominating the ball. They wanted to prove they could win without her. But instead, they exposed everything wrong with WNBA management today. Fans were furious. They had every right to be. The league's brightest star, the woman responsible for record-breaking ratings in sold-out arenas, was sidelined by her own team under false pretenses. The fans who filled those seats, bought those jerseys, and waited for every update suddenly realized they'd been fed lies. They weren't just misled, they were manipulated, and the betrayal cut deep. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about trust, truth, and the power struggle behind the polished image of women's sports. Doctors started releasing their findings publicly. One physician reviewed Clark's reported timeline. May 26th, quad strain. July 5th, left groin strain. July 16th, right groin strain. 3 lower body injuries in less than 2 months. Yet somehow, every time, the Fever called it minor. Every time they said day-to-day, the doctors didn't mince words. That's not how groin strains work. One said, even mild ones require weeks of rehab. That revelation didn't just raise eyebrows. It set social media ablaze. The internet smelled blood, and Stephanie White was standing right in the spotlight. Within hours, clips of White's past statements resurfaced. Fans stitched them together, exposing the contradictions like a courtroom exhibit. She's fine. She's close. She's not cleared. We'll know more after imaging. The same vague lines, recycled over and over again. One fan even edited a montage of White saying day-to-day 15 times in a row, set to circus music. It went viral. The comments were ruthless. Dr. White with another diagnosis. Google MD strikes again. The mockery was brutal, but it came from a place of anger. People felt cheated, and for once, the receipts were undeniable. Then came the biggest revelation of all. The Fever's medical staff hadn't even consulted outside specialists. Multiple doctors confirmed they were never contacted for any evaluations or follow-ups, meaning the team fabricated its own medical timeline from thin air. No peer review, no confirmation, just spin. And when you're dealing with a player like Caitlin Clark, whose body is not just her career but her legacy, that's not just unprofessional. That's dangerous. It showed a complete disregard for players' safety, all to protect a narrative that was already collapsing. But there was another twist. Reports surfaced that Caitlin Clark had quietly stopped seeing the Fever's doctors altogether. She'd turned to her own personal physicians, professionals she trusted. That's when everyone realized just how deep the distrust ran inside that locker room. If your superstar doesn't believe in the team's medical staff, something is very, very wrong. Fans started connecting the dots. This wasn't just an injury controversy. It was a full-blown mutiny in disguise. A player taking her health into her own hands because her organization couldn't be trusted to do it for her. The outrage spread like wildfire. Sports forums exploded. Reddit threads ran thousands of comments deep. "She's being benched for politics," one fan wrote. "This isn't an injury, it's control." And that theory started to make sense. Without Clark running the offense, White had freedom to experiment, to prove she could build a system beyond one superstar. But instead of leading with transparency, she led with manipulation. She extended the narrative, stretched the truth, and thought fans wouldn't notice. But they did. And once trust breaks in sports, it never fully returns. Caitlin Clark's fan base is unlike anything women's basketball has ever seen. They're loyal, analytical, and relentless. Within days, they'd piece together timelines, interview quotes, and video evidence showing the deception. One even created a color-coded chart showing every time White contradicted herself. It spread like wildfire across TikTok and Instagram. By the weekend, the hashtag Caitlin cover-up was trending. This wasn't just drama, it was digital war. And once social media turns against you, the damage isn't temporary, it's permanent. White's reputation was spiraling, and fast. Meanwhile, the media smelled blood in the water. Journalists began revisiting old pressers, analyzing every statement under a microscope. Outlets that once praised White's professionalism were suddenly changing tone. One headline summed it up best: "Fever coaching staff faces credibility crisis." That phrase, credibility crisis, echoed across sports talk shows, podcasts, and YouTube breakdowns. Everyone was saying it. Everyone was watching. And for the first time, the Fever weren't controlling the narrative anymore. They were being consumed by it. The situation became even more absurd when fans uncovered clips of White admitting she didn't know when Caitlin got injured. "I know afterwards. We got a message that something was going on with her," she said. A month later, the same woman claimed she knew exactly what had happened. The contradiction was staggering. How does a head coach not know when her star player was injured, then later pretend she does? It painted a picture not of confusion, but of calculation, a desperate attempt to rewrite history before anyone noticed the inconsistencies. But the internet noticed everything. Fans pulled those clips, compared the dates, and overlaid the footage. The result? A damning timeline that proved Stephanie White was revising her own story in real time. It wasn't sloppy communication anymore. It was manipulation. And in the world of professional sports, that's a career-ending accusation. Because once a narrative shifts from honest mistake to intentional deceit, there's no coming back. Especially when it involves the most popular player in the league and the biggest ratings draw in WNBA history. The Fever organization tried to get ahead of the backlash. Social media interns began deleting old posts, editing quotes, and quietly revising injury updates. But the internet never forgets. Fans had screenshots, screen recordings, and full press conference footage archived. Every deleted post became another piece of evidence in the public's case against White. "This is what guilt looks like," one fan tweeted, attaching a before and after screenshot of a deleted injury report. It was undeniable proof that the Fever weren't just hiding the truth. They were trying to erase it altogether. Even players from other teams began chiming in. Some spoke subtly. Others didn't bother hiding it. One tweeted, "Protect your body. They'll smile in your face and ruin your career behind your back." Everyone knew who it was about. Even media insiders hinted at widespread frustration with WNBA transparency. What started as one coach's cover-up was quickly becoming a league-wide reflection of mistrust, mismanagement, and manipulation. The dominoes were falling fast, and the Fever were caught at the center of it all. Inside the Fever locker room, the tension was palpable. Players avoided eye contact with reporters. Assistants whispered during post-game interviews. Everyone knew something had gone wrong, but no one wanted to be the one to say it. And through it all, Stephanie White kept smiling for the cameras, repeating her trademark phrase, "We're taking it one day at a time." But now, those words sounded hollow. Every repetition made it worse. Fans didn't hear reassurance anymore. They heard denial. a broken record masking a broken truth. Caitlin Clark, meanwhile, looked more frustrated by the day. Her body language told the story the Fever refused to admit. She wasn't injured, she was sidelined. Her eyes on the bench burned with the kind of intensity only a competitor could understand. She wanted to play. She was ready to play. And yet, every time the camera panned her way, she was in street clothes, forced to clap from the sidelines while her team stumbled through another loss. For fans, it was the ultimate insult. The face of the league, benched by deception. The scandal reached its boiling point when doctors publicly confirmed what many had suspected. Caitlin Clark had been cleared for full 5-on-5 play weeks earlier. The slow progression narrative was nothing more than a smokescreen. Stephanie White had deliberately delayed Clark's return. Why? Because if Clark came back and the team still lost, the blame would fall on her coaching. So she did what too many leaders do when their legacy's on the line. She chose self-preservation over honesty. And in doing so, she destroyed both. Once that truth broke, the floodgates opened. Memes flooded social media. Stephanie White's medical degree, earned on Google Images, read one viral post. Another showed a fake diploma from the University of Excuses. Even major sports personalities started weighing in, calling the scandal one of the most embarrassing cover-ups in WNBA history. For the first time, national outlets were discussing the Fever, but not for their games, for their lies. The story had officially transcended sports. It was a cultural moment, a scandal that defined an era. The Fever's comment sections became war zones. Every post, even birthday wishes and charity events, was flooded with "Stop lying about Caitlin." There was no escaping it. The organization's credibility had disintegrated. Stephanie White's name had become synonymous with dishonesty. Even her calm post-game demeanor now looked rehearsed, robotic. The smile of someone trying too hard convinced the world she still had control. But the truth was undeniable. She'd already lost it, completely, and the timing couldn't have been worse. This was supposed to be the Fever's redemption season, a chance to rebuild around Caitlin Clark, revitalize a fan base, and prove that WNBA's future was bright. Instead, it turned into chaos, a season defined not by victories, but by deception. And as more insiders came forward, it became clear this wasn't an isolated incident. It was a culture problem, a leadership culture that valued optics over integrity, control over care, and silence over truth. In the end, Caitlin Clark walked away fine. Physically, at least, the doctors confirmed she was never in real danger. Her recovery had been complete for weeks, but her trust in the system, that's gone, completely shattered. And as for Stephanie White, her legacy now carries a permanent asterisk. The coach who lied to her fans, her league, and her player. Every clip, every quote, every day-to-day will follow her for the rest of her career. It's not just bad PR anymore. It's history. Because in women's sports, honesty isn't optional. It's survival. You can fake optimism. You can spin narratives. You can even delete posts. But the truth always finds its way out. And when it does, it hits harder than any headline. Stephanie White learned that lesson the hardest way possible. The Caitlin Clark cover-up wasn't just a scandal. It was a revelation. A reminder that when you build your reputation on control instead of transparency, all it takes is one lie too many to watch it collapse. And now, as the dust settles, one truth remains. Caitlin Clark never needed a PR narrative to protect her. She just needed the chance to play. She's back, healthy, and ready to remind everyone why she's the most electrifying player in basketball today. But the Fever's leadership, their silence speaks volumes. The fans have spoken, the doctors have spoken, and now the world knows. You can't hide the truth forever, not when the truth wears number 22. And for Stephanie White, the clock isn't just ticking on her job, it's ticking on her reputation. Because this isn't a storyline she can coach her way out of. This is accountability. And the fans aren't forgiving, not this time. What started as a minor strain has become a major scandal. A day-to-day lie that lasted months. And as the WNBA rebuilds its image, one question echoes louder than ever. When did protecting the truth become optional? The answer, as fans now know, is simple. The day Stephanie White tried to rewrite it.